Hey folks, today I wanted to try something a little bit different. I've been making some pretty long videos, and now what I'm going to do is cut the length of my videos down a lot, and then I'm going to be posting code examples on GitHub. It's going to be a shared repository, so you can go in, download the code for yourself, and see everything that I'm using. Feel free to use the code. It's released under the MIT license, and the goal here is just to spread the knowledge around and have some fun doing it. So today I'm going to show you something called the repeater. And the repeater is something that I wrote as a time-saving mechanism for some of the level development that I'm doing. So I'm going to show you just some brief examples of what you can do with this, and then I'll post a link to the GitHub repository below, and you can go check it out for yourself. Obviously, if you have any questions or comments or recommendations, please feel free to go ahead and put that in the comments below and let me know. And if I need to make a follow-up video, then that's what we'll do. Thanks, here we go. So one of the first things is, this is a more advanced case of the repeater that I have, but let me show you some more simple cases first. So the first thing I'm going to do is, this is an actor that I have, and it's called the repeater. It's written in C++. I will briefly show you the code in just a little bit. But the first thing that I wanted to do was be able to just repeat a series of, let's say, walls, for example. So what I'm going to do is, let me just drag a pillar into here. I could either do a pillar or, here, I'll go ahead and do a wall. Let me find my wall mesh. And what you do is, you drag your mesh, you set your mesh up, and in this case, I'm going to use a line repeater. So what I do, that looks pretty crazy. So let me get rid of some settings here first. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I tell it that I want to render my static mesh in a line. I give it the number of items. Let me reduce this down to something a little bit easier to consume. So we'll just do 12. And you might remember that I did a similar repeater before, but I wrote that in Blueprints. Now it's written in C++. So now the thing is that you tell it which direction to repeat in. And in this case, I'm going to say the Y direction. So we're going to go in this direction here. So this tells me how far I spread out my walls. So if I keep going here, I forgot exactly how long the wall is itself. Well, they're getting out there pretty good. Okay, so now you see that the wall is actually not laying quite flat or standing straight up. So what I can do then is I can adjust its rotation. There we go. So I actually had an adjustment in there. But now you see I have a series of walls, and what this is doing is repeating using an instant static mesh. And if I wanted to, let's say, rotate these on a 45-degree angle, then all I have to do is choose the axis that I want to rotate them on, and I'll just input 45 degrees, and now you see that everything's repeated. So you can do a lot of things with this. It makes creating, let's say, a corridor or something like that a lot easier. The next thing that I want to show you is, if you don't want to render things in a straight line, then what you can do is render a polygon. So let me show you that. So instead of a line, I'm going to say render a polygon. So now we have our our mesh, but we see that it's got, you know, some curvature to it and those sort of things. So let me get rid of the rotation first. Okay, so now they're standing straight up. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to reduce the number of sides. So let's go down to like a basic square. Okay, so square has 4 sides, obviously. And the next thing is, let me get rid of the increment that you see here, because this is skewing how things are laid out. They're always so hard to click on. All right, let's see. Okay, so now you see that we have our square, but the walls aren't quite big enough. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it along the Y, and this will make things stretch out. And once we get them to, oh, that's really crazy. Didn't mean to go that far. So anyway, I think you get the idea that now we can scale things. Now, when you do this type of scaling, you need to use world align textures so that the texture will scale with it, but that's not a problem. So now that we have our room, right? So you could easily create a room using this. Now let me change it to. Now let me change it to another 5-sided. So I changed the number of sides, and now you see that we have a pentagon. Then I can go to a hexagon, right? So that's really nice. Now the next thing is, if I want to, I can add a Z offset to this. So every time we create a new side, we will offset on the Z axis. So let me do this, and I think you'll get a sense for what I'm talking about. So here you can see already that every time we add a new side, it's increasing the height. And so now you kind of have this rotating effect, right? Kind of looks like a tornado. Then what you can do is you can increase the rotations to just keep adding more and more. And so now you start to get a structure that, you know, looks like this, right? And, you know, I think that the world's kind of your oyster as far as, you know, what you can do for use your imagination to figure out what you can do with this. Let me show you a really cool example of using, let's say, something that is, let me show you. So let me take how about a candle? Okay. So let me take a candle and drop that in there. Okay. So now you see this, it's kind of interesting. The candles are really small. So what I want to do is I just want to go ahead and scale those up a bit. So on my scale, I'm going to choose right down here. I'm going to scale those up by a factor of 10. So we'll go 10 or something close to 10 anyway. Okay, so here's my candles. I'm going to go down and change my rotations back to 1. So now you get a sense that, you know, this is the kind of stuff you can do. Honestly, you could sit here and play with it all day. Download the code, compile it in your project. It's really simple. And you can let me know what you think. Let me show you what the code looks like real quickly. It's just one header file and one C++ file. So it's an actor. We have some private functions, all of the U properties that are related to changing the items in the blueprint. And then over here, this is all the code. There's basically two main functions. One is called spawn polygon, which is right here. And the other one is called spawn line. And I used to have one called spawn circle, but that code still works. But if you add enough sides to your polygon, then it basically becomes a circle. So the circle logic really wasn't needed, but I'm going to leave it in there in case you want to play around with it. So that's about it. I hope you enjoyed today's content. Take care and have a great day.